Welcome back to Aliya Yomi. Today we're going to be learning Pinchas Chamishi, the fifth Aliya in Parshas Pinchas. The topic now shifts in the parasha away from counting Bnei Israel and inheritance and all the descriptions of the next level of leadership, and we move now to Korbanos. We first can hear about the Korban Tamid, the daily sacrifice, and then the Korban Musaf of Shabbos and Rosh Chodesh. This is a very famous Aliya because it's read every Rosh Chodesh, so people often know this Aliya very well off by heart. It runs from Perek Chav Ches to Aleph to Tesov. It is 16 psukim long, and as we described, it is the beginning of the Korbanos. So we hear about three sets of Korbanos. The Korban Tamid, Moshe is told that on a daily basis they bring a sacrifice in the Mishkan. It consists of two lambs, one brought in, each of them a year old, one brought in the morning and one brought in the afternoon. We're also told about the meal offerings and the libations which accompany it. So there's a tenth of an ephah of flour which is bought with it in oil, and the libation of a quarter of a hin. And this korban is an oil, it is fully burnt up in the morning and the evening. Then we then hear about the Musaf, the extra additional korbanos of Shabbos. So on Shabbos, 2 additional lambs are brought with their meal offerings and libations, and this is in addition to the Korban Tamid. That reflects the prayer that we have on Shabbos. So we have the regular Shachris, which is corresponding to the Korban Tamid, and we have the Musaf, which is corresponding to the Korban Musaf, which is why we talk about those korbanos in Musaf. Finally, we hear about the Musaf of Rosh Chodesh. On Rosh Chodesh, we hear the special korbanos, a burnt offering, which is a bull, and made up of 2 bulls, 1 ram, 7 lambs, and then the respective menachos, and finally a series echad lachatos laHashem, a goat which is a atonement to Hashem. So let's just sort of unpack this piece by piece. A few basic questions. Why are the korbanos being put here in the first place? Meaning, were the korbanos not told to the nation of Israel 39 years ago when they established the Mishkan? So Rashi says, well, he's responding to Moshe's request. Moshe said, let's find a leader to lead the people. So because Hashem says to him, well, before you find a leader to lead the people, make sure they're following me. So in order to follow me, show me a demonstration of their commitment. And their commitment is expressed in the korbanos. That's why it is following over here. But of course, it was commanded before, and this is a reaffirmation. The Malbim it goes a little further along this line to say that the korbanos are also, and this is not the only reason for korbanos, but one of the reasons that the Rambam Memorial Nevuchim describes is to counteract the pagan worship at the time. So people would serve the sun in the morning as it went up and as it went down in the evening, and so the korban was brought to the opposite sides of the Mizbeach to where the sun was, to demonstrate that the people were committed to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, not the pagan the deities that would meet as they come into the land of Israel, which Yeshua is about to lead. So to affirm the future commitment, even despite entering a pagan territory, that's why this is brought here. The Ramban goes in a little bit of a different angle, and he points out that yes, the Korban Tamid, the daily Korban, was brought during the desert for the last 39 years, but the Musafim, the extra additional Korbanos of the Yom Tovim, and the Nesachim, which is the libations, were not yet brought. So this is why they're being commanded here. The Korban Tamid is being reaffirmed as well. It is interesting to notice that the Aruch HaKodesh quotes the Yalkut, that people thought that maybe when we stop traveling, we no longer bring Korbanos. HaKadosh Baruch Hu is saying, no, you bring Korbanos even when you stop traveling and you enter into the land of Israel. Now, who's in charge of the Korbanos? Whose responsibility is it? Rashi makes it very clear that this is a commandment of Amartu Lahem, refers to Beis Din. Beis Din are responsible for bringing the Korbanos. And what is interesting is that they had Ma'amodos, which means representation of Kohanim, Levim, and Yisraelim at every Korban. So it was like jury duty, where everybody would have a certain amount of time where they would have to be there in the Beis Hamikdash representing the rest of their brethren at the Korban Tamid. It's fascinating to notice that there is a medrash, very, very famous medrash, which is quoted in the Hakdama, the introduction of the Ein Yaakov. Interestingly enough, it's not to be found elsewhere, but in his introduction he quotes a very famous medrash which describes a discussion between the sages as to what the most famous pasuk in the Torah, the most important pasuk in the Torah is. So one option is Shema Yisrael Hashem Elokeinu Hashem Echad, the belief in the unity of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Another pasuk is V'ahavta l'reacha kamocha, loving the neighbors oneself, like Rabbi Akiva. And the third possibility, which is suggested, is the pasuk in our Aliya. The one korban brought in the morning, the one korban brought in the evening, which is the korban tamid. That seems like a little bit of an anti-climax after all, right? That doesn't sound so important to be what the hallmark of what Torah is. So the Mefarshim explain, that the Ein Yaakov explains, is that Torah requires consistency. Torah requires a commitment. It's all very nice to have moments of euphoria and epiphanies, but in the end of the day, one needs to, where the rubber meets the tar, what's going to be the next day? Are you going to come? Are you going to be there? Is there commitment? It's not enough to be a Jew at heart. That's what's being said over here. Another question: what if the korbanos were missed? Rashi points out, Shabbos b'Shabbatoi, or Chodesh b'Chodesh. If you miss it out, you don't get it again. There's only one opportunity to bring these korbanos as well. Why is there a Korban Chatas on Rosh Chodesh for Hashem? It's a bit of a strange description. Why does Hashem need a Korban Chatas? So the Bechor Shor, Rav Yosef Bechor Shor, explains that it's L'Shem Shamayim. You should bring the Korban Chatas on Rosh Chodesh for the sake of heaven. Rashi quotes a famous Chazal, which says that HaKadosh Baruch Hu, when he created the two luminaries, the sun and the moon, which give light to earth, to terra firma, they were created the same size, and then HaKadosh Baruch Hu minimized the moon because it complained how there could be two kings using one crown, and HaKadosh Baruch Hu says, I'm bringing a kapara, or bring a kapara for me, for having minimized the moon. Very strange Chazal. I mean, why was Hashem need a kapara? What's this whole conversation? A lot to talk about over here. There's an extremely lengthy Maharal on this topic, but for basic lessons, very basic ideas, the Rabbeinu Bechai extracts from here. Lesson number one is that HaKadosh Baruch Hu doesn't like it when there's machlokes in His creation. He doesn't like it when one entity is complaining that the way He created it wasn't fair about another entity, and HaKadosh Baruch Hu has to intercede. Hashem doesn't like that. Hashem says, I want you to atone once a month. I want you to realize I don't like you having problems with each other. That's number one. The other thing is HaKadosh Baruch Hu built into the creation this waning and this waxing, the notion that Baalei Tshuva can always come back. That HaKadosh Baruch Hu is saying, look, I made this change in creation to minimize those who made machlokes, who castigated, but they can come back. The moon can disappear and can regain power, and therefore part of the we'll call microcosmic process of every month is the realization that you can disappear, you can have problems, but you can still reconstitute yourself as well, which is a very powerful idea, which is to be found in the format of these korbanos. There is a lot more to talk about, but one fascinating point, and then we'll close with this, is the basic constellation of the korbanos is the following. It's 1 ram, 2 bulls, 7 lambs, and 1 goat for a chatas. Why is it relevant? So the Rabbi Menachem Liebtag once said a very beautiful thing. I heard him say this idea that they actually refer to 4 stories that occur in the Torah. The 1 ram refers to the Ayel, the ram of Yitzchak in the Aken and Parshas Vayera. The 2 bulls refer to the 2 bulls which were brought by Moshe Rabbeinu at the end of the what's called Bris Sinai in Parshas Mishpatim after Matan Torah. In the very last Aliya. The 7 lambs refer to the covenant made between Avram and Avimelech in Parshas Vayera, between the covenant between the Philistines and the Israelites. And finally, the 1 goat for the Chatas refers to the goat that was killed when dipping the blood, or dipping the coat of Yosef after the sale of Yosef into blood. Now you think these sound like 4 random stories, so why are they being encapsulated in these korbanos, the framework of the korbanos of Rosh Chodesh and most of the other Yom Tovim? So he explains because they govern 4 different relationships: Jew and God as an individual, that's the Yitzchak Avinu. Then there's Jew and God as the collective, that's after Matan Torah, the 2 bulls. Then there's God and non-Jew, and that refers to Avram and Avimelech. Those are 7 lambs. And then there's Jew and Jew. That refers to Yosef and the sale of Yosef at the hands of his brothers. Which means that every Rosh Chodesh or every Yom Tov, when we have this Musaf sacrifice, which incorporates these 4 things: 1 ram, 2 bulls, 7 lambs, and 1 goat, we're remembering these 4 different dimensions that all of us have: our relationship to God as individuals, our relationship to God as a collective, our relationship between ourselves as Jews and Jews, and our relationship between ourselves and non-Jews. And that's what we're trying to correct, and that's what we're trying to fix every time we bring this framework of korbanos. In the meantime, have a wonderful and meaningful day.